Well, let's talk about guitars, Ricky.
Okay.
This one that you got right here is a 1935 Herringbone.
Yep.
D-28. Now I got a 35 D-18. I think I looked it up. 1935. I think there were 71 D-28s made. 35 is kind of a special year. They had the stamp on the back of the headstock.
Yeah, this one's got it.
And
not all of them.
not all of them.
No.
Just the mid and early 35s.
Yeah.
And then trying to think, 35 was the first year in the catalog. 34 was the first year for the 14 fret dreadnought, but 35 was the first year they put it in the catalog, made the catalog. But since I got mine, I'm kind of, I like the 35s.
Oh, me too.
But
That's my favorite year.
yeah, favorite year. Yeah.
Late 34 and early 35 is my favorite. And,
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I know a D18 in 1935 would have set you back $60,
Yeah.
and then the cases were about half that, which surprised me in their catalog. How much the cases were. Every time I see a original case, I thought, man, how did somebody go in there and buy that guitar and then shell out half the guitar amount for the case, you know, especially if they got the one with the lock on it, which was the deluxe case, you know.
I pitied the guy that walked out there without a case.
Oh, I know. Yeah, they just had enough for the guitar. Just imagine, without looking it up, I guess the 35, I guess this guitar would have probably been around $70, $75, maybe $75.
Yeah.
Which back then was a lot of money. I mean, I don't know how they did it. But, you know, with that being said, the people that had them, man, they hung on to them, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
they were. Well, they had to mean a lot to you in order to pay that much and probably pay payments and everything like that on them.
Yeah.
Was,
now, this particular one, special guitar for you, this was the Elmer.
this is Elmer Jones' old guitar.
Tell us a little bit about Elmer.
Well, so the way growing up as a kid, you know that there's you start out playing this guitar, then you move to another guitar, and my first Martin guitar was a '77 D35, and it was a good guitar. I enjoyed it, loved it, but I just knew that there was something out there that had more than that had, had more. And so, and I'd played a lot of different guitars, newer Herringbones, and a friend of mine here in town that's still with us today, he had a 45 D28 and a Herringbone. And he was gracious enough to loan it to me. And I was a kid, if I knew how much he loved that guitar, I'd have never borrowed it, because today he's living at 90 years old and he still loves that guitar. He went to Cincinnati, got it on a bus, and gave $70 for it. So
Wow.
And that's many moons ago. But he loaned that guitar to me, so I kind of got accustomed to what a good guitar sounded like, and it had it had a whole lot of what I was looking for. But he didn't want to get rid of that guitar, and so I was playing that guitar, and I had a friend in Oklahoma, and I can't not remember his name, and he had the next guitar that was built after that 45. So I went to Langley, Oklahoma to play a festival out there, and it was hot. We was on stage playing, and when we come off, I went towards the car with the guitar, and that guy come over there, and he said, I was seeing him, and he said he had his guitar, and he said, I've got a friend here that's, I want you to meet him, and I want you to see his guitar. You hear that at every show.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'd love to see him. And man, I was sweating like a mule. I sweat like a hog anyway. So, and here come this guy, little man, little short man, hat on, and he's carrying this case with a wire handle on it, and he set it down there, and he said, when I opened it up and hit it, I knew. I mean, there was no doubt about it. I said I got to get. That's it. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And he had just got the guitar. He just got this guitar, and he said it a few months before. This had to be in '86 or something, 86 probably. And so I said, "Is there any way I could play this guitar on stage?" And he said, "Well, yeah, no problem." And so I turned around. I started playing it, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was way more. It was a difference between a apple and an orange. You know, so I sat there playing it. I turned around, he was gone. And I thought, where'd he go? And I started looking for him. And I thought, well, if I sat in the sun, I said, if I don't, I got to go somewhere. And he just left it with me. So I carried it around there a little bit, and I played it on stage, and it was the first guitar I've ever been on stage. There was a PV monitor and a SM57 and 4 other guys on stage beating the 4 other instruments. And when I hit this guitar and that mic, it sounded like a Telecaster coming out of that monitor. It just mic'd so well. It just come through, and I thought, I've got to get this somehow.
Yeah.
And so when I come off stage, I said, how much you want for that guitar? He said, well, I don't want to sell it. I ain't had it that long. I want to keep it. And he said, but now I've got a couple other guitars. He said, I've got a 3418 and a 39 D-28. He said, you're welcome one of them if you want them. I said, nope. I played a bunch of guitars. I said, I want that one right there. And I mean, I got his number. It about drove me crazy. I came home, and Sarah was married at the time, and I came home, and I mean, I was just worthless. And I called him Monday morning. I called him, you know, I really liked that guitar. And so it went on, you know, he seen how he seen I was in love with it. I mean,
yeah.
So about 3 or 4 months later, we was playing another show, and we was in Texarkana, Texas, and up until that point, I'd had 2 or 3 other guitars that I'd borrowed and played and stuff like that. And the thing with that, you got to give them back. They're not yours.
Yeah.
So we were sitting there playing, and he started scratching his head. He said, Rickey, I've told my wife if something happened to me, I want you to have that guitar. And I said, oh, no, don't do that to me, Elmer. I said, I've been through that. I said, just sell it to me. And we'll find, and he just didn't want to turn it loose. He loved it too.
Right.
And he said, you just take it and play it. You can just take it and keep it and play it. And I said, I don't want to do that, because then I'll have to give it up. So this went on for months and months. And then finally we decided, he said, well, let's just find you a guitar. And I thought, and the first thing I thought is, no, let's find you another one. And so I done been down that road, but I said, okay. And I mean, to show you what kind of guy he was, he said, I've got money, I'll help you buy you a guitar. I was going to have to borrow the money, every dime of it.
Yeah.
I thought, oh boy, here we go. You know, let's just find you one and let me have that one. I'll pay payments on it.
Yeah.
So, but all through this process, I mean, I just fell in love with him. He was like a daddy to me. And I seen his heart. His heart was so pure and so, you know, so giving that I didn't want to take his guitar away from him. But he would let me play it. You know, he'd let me take it and play it, and I recorded with it and stuff. And I mean, it was the guitar that, you know, made my day. So we get up to a point. He calls me one day and he says, I found your guitar. He said, there's a guy in California got a 1936 or 7 Herringbone. And he said, I'm going to have him. He said, can you go to IBMA? I said, I can go anywhere. He said, he's coming to Louisville and he's going to bring that guitar for you to, and so his name is Randy Snoddy.
Oh, RC.
So, RC.
Wow.
So he was coming down. I never met him, didn't know who he was or nothing. So So I said, yes, sir, I'll be there. I said, I'll be down there. It was on like Tuesday. I can be there. And he said, well, he's going to meet you at a certain spot on Tuesday. So I get in the car and I run down there. I get down there and God's in the work of every bit of this stuff now. He knows my heart. He knew what I wanted. So I get down there and when I check in the motel and I'm getting ready to see that guitar. So that morning I met him there and I said, I'm Rickey Wasson. Elmer Jones sent me here. Oh yeah, Elmer told me you'd be here. And I said, I've come to see a guitar. And he said, yep, I've got some in the car. You want to walk out here and see them? So I walked outside, heart just flying, And we get out there and he opened the trunk and he gets us some kind of guitar out and it's a 50-some model or something like that. And I said, where's that 37 or 36 or you had? He said, oh, I forgot. He said, I left that with my son in Nashville. He said, I thought, oh my, I've drove all the way down here and now I'm going to see that guitar. And, just heart just dropped. I thought, well, I'm wasting my time. I don't want no 50s guitar. Right. I want a wide neck, 4X. I know what I wanted. Right. I wanted Elmer's.
Right.
So heart kind of dropped there. And so there was another case laying in that trunk. It was a leaf case, a black case. I said, what's in there? He said, oh, that's another herringbone. He said, I'm trying to buy that. I said, really? He said, yeah, it's a 1935. I said, really? I said, you mind if I look at it? He said, no, look at it. So I opened the case up, and there's the guitar.
Really? This one right here?
That right there. It was in the case. And strings were green on it. I got it out and strummed it. And when I did, it just bellered. And I thought, whew, man, big dog.
Yeah.
So he said, there's a guy trying to sell me that guitar, but he just wants a lot of money for that guitar. And he said, but if I get it, I'll price it to you, let you know what I want out of it. I said, good deal. That's on Thursday. And I said, well, that sounds great. And I gave him my number and all this stuff. And so my daddy was a trader coming up. He would trade for anything. But there's nothing he hated worse than a welcher or somebody that got in the middle of somebody else's deal. He just didn't believe in that. So when I left that guitar laying there, I knew I liked that guitar, and I went back in the building. Now, mind you, this place was packed with people. I walked back in that side door, and my heart was flying. I wanted to call Elmer and tell him that I didn't see the 37 or 36, but I seen a 35. This is all God working. Every bit of this is God working. I walked back in that door, and my heart was flying. I hadn't even called him yet, Elmer. There was two men standing over against the wall looking at a guitar, rolling it over. And I was almost out of composure because I was so shook up. And I just walked over and never seen them guys before in my life. I walked over there, and this guy must have known me that I played with Southern Blend or something. And he's standing there holding that guitar, and he just handed it to me. And he said, you want to see this? And I was like, I thought to myself, not really. I want that out there in the car, or I want Elmer's.
Right.
And when he handed me that guitar, he looked at me. He said, "I've got a 1935 herringbone. You could knock me down with a feather." I thought, and my mind worked pretty fast because RC was standing about 20 feet from us. This was the guy that owned the guitar that I just looked at in the car.
Just looked at. Wow.
And I thought, RC's going to see me look at this man, and it's going to make him mad that I'm trying to get in his deal. He thinks I'm going to get in his deal.
Yeah.
And I had no clue. All I done was I looked on this man's name tag, and it said Ron Tipton. And I shook his hand, turned around, and left. And I was trying to process all this deal, and I thought, I'm not getting in his deal. So this is on Tuesday. I thought, I'm going to wait and give him time to buy that guitar, then I'll buy it off of him.
Yeah.
So every morning at breakfast, RC was in there getting him a waffle. Mm-hmm. And I'd ask him, I said, you get that guitar yet? He said, no, I'm working on him, but he just wants a lot of money for it. Trader talk. So Saturday morning, I was getting ready. I was going to come home Saturday night. I'd made my mind up on Saturday morning. If he hasn't bought that guitar, I'm going to try to find him and see if I can buy that guitar.
Yeah.
So I asked Randy, and he said no. And so I started looking. I walked my legs off. And that was the year that they had the festival when it rained it out, and they went into the garage underneath, and they played music in there. And I mean, I walked and walked and walked, and could not find that guy. And, you know, little did I know, he was from Owensboro. So he came and went. That's where Ron Tipton lived. And come to find out, he was the guy that made the Dobro bar for Jerry Douglas.
Oh, wow.
And so I called Elmer, and I was telling him all this. You know, I was keeping him filled in on it. He said, well, you get hold of that guitar, you get it. You buy it, I'll get you the money. I'll get you the money. And you know, he was all about it.
Yeah.
So I had literally called him and called Sarah and told her I was coming home. And I started to walk out the door, and there he stood, right by the door of that garage, parking garage. And I walked over and I said, he told me when I first met him that he had a 1935 and there was a guy trying to buy it off of him, but he didn't know if he wanted to sell it. And so when I walked over there, that was the conversation. I said, did you sell your guitar? And he said, no. Would you like to see it? I said, I sure would. He had got it back from Randy. So we walked out there, and he was driving a Bronco, little Ford Bronco, and he opened the lid. It was raining a little bit. Opened the thing and got it out. And I asked him 2 or 3 questions about it. And I said, you know, and he told me, and I said, what would it take to buy this guitar? And he said, I'd have to have $5,000 for it. And I said, okay, I'll take it. I said, I ain't got the money with me, but I'll come back and get it. And he said, he kind of, you know, backed up a little bit, and he said, okay. So, I mean, I was on cloud 9. I could flew home. I don't think I used, you know, even used no gas. I came straight home, got the money, and went back.
Yeah.
And when I get back down to Ron's house, come find out Ron had knew me through playing with Southern Blend, and he knew way more about me than I knew about him.
Yeah.
So I go to Ron's house, and when I get there was a young boy in the community that played guitar really well. And he was sitting there on Ron's couch playing the guitar. And I thought, oh boy, going to have problems.
Yeah.
And so we played and talked about guitars, and we went out, and finally I got Ron outside, and he went out to my car, and we listened to some music. And he said, man, I messed up. I said, what, Ron? He said, my wife don't want me to sell this guitar. And this young boy, he wants this guitar too.
Oh, no.
And I thought, oh, here we go. And he said, but Ron wanted me to have the guitar. I mean, he made the deal. He didn't want to back up. He told me, he said, you take that guitar home with you and you play it. You might not even like it. I met this guy twice. He said, you take it home and play it. You might not even like it. And he said, but we'll work it out. We'll work it out, and if you want it. And he was basically buying time. So I thought, well, possession is 90% of ownership.
That's right. Yeah. Better get it.
So I brought it home with me. Again, everything in my power I want to do. It had not been mine, because I thought if I do get it home, there's a chance I won't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really dreaded that, because I knew it was a special guitar. So I get home with it. I called him every day. Every Sunday I called him for 3 or 4 months. And finally one day he said, okay, send me the money. The guitar's yours. So this guitar here has actually pacified me, and not that it's a second-rate guitar to anybody, because I've loved this guitar here as much as I've loved this guitar here.
Right.
But they're totally different guitars and totally different sound. Elmer's has got its own groove that it stands out in a mix, and this guitar here just blends so well with things. And this was JD's favorite guitar.
Yeah.
I played it a whole lot with JD, and then when Elmer passed away, the night before he passed away, he sold me this one here for $1. So this is still Elmer's guitar, and I'm just its keeper.
Yeah.
And when I get done with it, I'll pass it on, and my son plays, and he'll get it, and he'll get to enjoy it. But this guitar here was every bit as good as this guitar here, and for what it does. They're just totally different. This is a late 35, and this is a more earlier. And the only thing that I can tell difference is if you can see this wood here. I call this a honeycomb type wood. It's got like a bird's eye look to it. The only guitars I've ever seen this in has been the early 35s.
All right, going back to the what you said about the side, late 34, early 35, has this particular
type of Brazilian.
Rosewood. Yeah, Brazilian.
Yeah, it's got a more of a yellow, goldy look in it, and I've always wondered if that's the tone of these, the ones that I've heard. I've seen 5 or 6 like this, and they were more apt to a more defined mid-range to them than some of the other herringbones in the late 35s and 36s, and especially 37s. And something else that I wasn't aware of, and John Arnold had told me, and he measured this guitar. He set the neck in it the last time it was set, and something he brought up to me. He asked me, he said, "Can I measure that?" And I said, "Yeah, look, do anything you want to." So he went in there and he said the X braces in the 35 was shaped. They were angled a little different.
A little different.
A little bit different. Now I don't know if they're tighter X or wider X or what he meant, but he said, oh, he knew that, but he forgot it. So I know there's something different between the 35 and the 36s and 37s because the tone is different.
Right. Yeah.
They're equally good. It's just in the frequency response of them, it's almost like they got a low pass and a high pass filter on them, and they're just really focused in a really part of the mid-range section. Really good. Makes them mic really well.
Oh yeah.
Makes them mic very good.
And I feel like when I got my guitar, it just felt my 35 D18. It was the first guitar I had where I felt like the sound was coming from everywhere, like the sides, the back, not just the top. That I felt like that guitar. I don't know.
Well, this guitar here is the first guitar that I've ever played as a herringbone that I could put a 57 in the sound hole and hit, and it wasn't. The low end will take over the rest of it. It'll look like a woo and take off. This guitar with good strings on it.
Yeah.
With good strings on it, it's just all mid range. No matter how when you hit it.
Right.
So it makes it mic so much better than it's just more focused and it's not rumbling bassy.
Right.
Yeah. And I always said, I don't know if we got this, but I always looked at this guitar as if it was a really good D18 with about 25% more power.
Right.
And I don't know if it was because of this type of wood here. I got another one that's like this, and it's somewhat the same thing. And of course, I've always been real partial to Elmer's guitar because I've loved Elmer, and this is the first good one I ever played.
Right.
And that's what I like. I like other guitars, but this has always been my favorite. Now, this guitar here was JD's favorite. He liked it because it blended with his banjo well. And,
right.
And this one kind of blended with the no-hole banjo that he played because they were both more out front, I never will forget the first time that JD brought, when I first started playing with JD, he was playing a Granada, and he played that thing for, must have been a year or two. And so we went to play a show, and I never paid attention to what he was carrying, and we was in Milton Harkey's in North Carolina on stage, and man, it was just like, whew, the banjo was taking your face off, and I thought, man, they must have him turned up loud. I looked, and he wasn't even in the mic. I looked down, and I said, what's that? And he said, that's banger. And it was that no-hole 3, and it's the same way that the tone of that banjo there is the same way this here. it's very focused where it's at, and it's really powerful in that range.
Yeah.
So if you wanted bottom end out of her sweetness, you had to work hard to get the sweetness of it, because it was like every time you hit it, it screamed at you.
Yeah.
And this guitar is about the same way. If you you can get the sweetness out of it, but it's more work.
Right.
You have to really ease at it, and so it's kind of neat that the instruments are equally good, but just in a different way.
Right.
And I've noticed that even from a 34 to a 35 to a 36 to a 37 to a 38, there's still a lot of difference when you get right down to it, because the 38s will be warmer because they got the forward X, the backward X, and of course then when they went to the small neck, they warmed up a little more. The sustain, I think with the big neck you gain a lot of sustain in the high end,
and then we got, well, along with the big neck, you get a wider spacing down here. So I think that has a lot to do with it too, because of the way it pulls that.
Now, what you had to bring it up for? I never thought of that.
Yeah, so that with this wider spacing here, it pulls the top different. than a regular a
Now I
small
went 45
neck.
year and never thought of that.
Yeah, well,
But it's a whole nother deal.
yeah, I mean that you got the stability of this, with the 1 3/4 neck and a 30s neck, which they're a whole different animal.
Yeah.
They get really thick, right around 4th, 5th fret, but they're comfortable, I think.
Oh yeah.
But they do get thick, like a regular Elliott capo. You almost have to have the thumb screw almost out to get it to the 5th fret. And that's how much difference there is, to a modern guitar.
Yeah.
But then it gradually keeps going, tapers, wider and wider, or the depth of it, until you get to the heel.
Yeah.
So you got a solid
really,
neck, and
really
then
big piece of wood.
you got this wide spacing here pulling on the top, and then this the red spruce top on this guitar, where they was getting those out of the Carolinas, and West Virginia, Tennessee. I always heard that they always asked them why you use red spruce. How did they know it was the best sounding tone wood? And they didn't.
They had plenty of it.
Yeah, it was cheaper. It was cheaper than to import Sitka or to get Sitka shipped over. I've read. I used to belong to the Luthiers Guild, and they had several articles about how they.
I'm glad it was cheaper.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, how they and they. I've read articles too where they in Greg Hutton's book that they definitely like the lighter colored top wood. That was they love that, and then of course all these red spruce, it's got like a lemon color, as opposed to like the Sitka, it's got the brown. But and of course all those red spruce tree, it likes to it likes high altitude, 3,200 square feet or feet, 3,200 feet and above.
That's a big tree, 3,200 feet tree.
Yeah, so they like to grow 3,200 feet and above. So all those places are state parks now. Back, and that's what I'm sure drove them to start using Sitka in '46.
Well, I don't know, but like we talked a while ago is I don't know how come all the mid 20s instruments to mid 30s instruments ended up being the instrument of choice for bluegrass music when bluegrass music wasn't around then.
Right. Yeah.
But it's kind of like magic. The mandolins and the banjos and the guitars too were pretty much the catch me out back then. And so, but there wasn't I've thought about this, that when they first made these big body guitars, Martin probably thought, why do we need that? We don't need that kind of volume out of a guitar.
Right.
Until Earl Scruggs got a hold of the banjo and pinched it in 1946.
Right.
There wasn't many loud instruments, but
Yeah.
Then the requirement came for a heavy thumb pick and a herringbone or a good stout D18, you know.
Yeah.
And
and two, we had, if you look back then, you went from probably a small audience to now the audiences are getting bigger.
Yeah.
You're playing these,
Did Lester ever play a herringbone, a 30s herringbone?
I don't think so. We do know that we just did that story on the his D18. That was the first guitar he played with Bill Monroe, and then first part of Flat and Scruggs.
He played Monroe's herringbone.
Yeah.
On something, some of them things.
And that's what came out with the D18. That's what drove him to buy the D18. Since he used the thumb pick and the finger pick, the tale was Bill told him, said, "Hey, I don't want you scratch my guitar up, so you're going to have to get your own guitar." So that's when he started using the D18.
Lester never did own a 30s that he played on. He always played that 18 or I guess some of the guitars he played was in the late 40s or
right.
50s.
I think that L5 guitar that
Marty.
That Marty has it, but
What's
Mike Longworth, made that guitar.
What year is that guitar?
I want to say that was maybe a 50 or a late 40s. I'm not sure on that because, and I'm sure that the last thing I think Mike was actually living in Chattanooga. I don't know if he was employed by Martin at that time. He was just doing those D45 conversions, and a lot of the stars and stuff was getting those. And that particular one, I think Lester got from him because he had the L5, which was
the fifth one he done.
That Longworth, yeah.
Longworth fifth one he done.
Yeah. Which yeah.
Well, Lester had the right thumb for it, didn't he?
He sure did. Yeah. But
that was the main thing.
Yeah. So tell us about Elmer when he went to buy this guitar.
Well, actually, Elmer had a house fire in the mid '80s, and he'd lost some instruments, and so he decided he wanted to find him a really good guitar. He wanted an old guitar, and Elmer was an amateur picker, but he probably knew more about guitars than anybody ever met. He could walk in a room 100 guitars, and he would come out with the best one because he had an ear for it. He could say that one's really special. This is good, but he knew him was he could find a better one way quicker than anybody I know. So he had a friend in Oklahoma City named Don Teeter, and Don repaired guitars. He was a tool and die guy and just a great repairman. Anyway, so he had this D45 in his 1938 shade top. So he priced it to Elmer, and Elmer thought on it, and he told his wife, said, "I'm going to go buy that guitar." So he went and borrowed the money. And the morning he's supposed to leave, the night before, he called one of his friends, and he said, "Would you ride to Oklahoma City with me to get this guitar?" And he said, "Sure." So when he got over the next morning, he said, "You going to go down there and buy that guitar?" He said, "There's one in Kansas City, Missouri, that's a D-28. He said, we'll go look at it. It's all original." And it was less money. So Elmer said, "Okay." So they went down to went down to Kansas City, Missouri, to a music store and bought this guitar. He gave $5,000 for it. And from the time I met him, he was always telling me about that D45, and he liked it because it was shade top, and he really liked the sound of it. Don had done some work on it. He had changed the bracing in it to made them tapered braces. I think when Don got it, it must have had some damage, and so he was, of course, a repairman, and he took the back off of it and he replaced the braces and put the back on it, refinished the back, I think, and so he had it in good shape, the sound. And Elmer just loved the sound of it. He just remembered playing it, but he bought this guitar here. So all down through the years, every time we would talk, he said, "Man, I just should have bought that guitar. I should have bought it too. I just should have bought it too." Well, Don ended up, not too long after Elmer was going to go look at it, buy it. He sold it to a guy named Hank Risen, and I never did meet Hank. And so Elmer told me about this, and then Elmer's been gone since 2003 or 4, and so he was telling me before he passed, he he said that you know, he wished he'd went got this guitar and he would have had both of them. So years later, I thought, well, y'all never probably get to see that. I never even thought about ever getting to see that guitar.
Right.
So I got a call about 6 or 8 months ago, and a guy was doing story on guitars, taking pictures and stuff. And he wanted to take pictures of this guitar and stuff, and I said, absolutely, yeah. You know, in Elmer's memory, I'd love for this guitar to be a part of the book. And so when I went down there, they gave me an address. I went to it, and this gentleman came out and come downstairs and helped me carry some of the guitars up there. And when I walked in this room, there sat that guitar, and there's only one of them.
Yeah,
there's
the only one. Yeah,
it's got the hexagon. It's got an F9 pattern on the neck, shade top D45. And so I immediately looked at him. I said, "Are you Hank Rising?" He said, "No, but I bought that guitar from Hank Rising." I said, "Well, I knew that." I said, "That's the Don Teeter guitar." And all these stories that Elmer told me about that guitar started coming to mind. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, I've got Elmer's guitar and this guitar in the same room together. So, I mean, it's like a shot of adrenaline, you know. It just all the times came back, memories. And I said, "Can I play that?" And he said, yeah. So he let me play it, and I got a picture of it, and we'll get a picture of it so you can show the folks. But this guitar in this picture that you're going to see is Elmer's dream. That was and me and on both those guitars. And I actually talked to him right before he passed away, and I said, "When you get to heaven, you're going to have a better guitar than both of those."
Yeah, amen.
And so I can't wait to see what Elmer's playing now. Because he's got the best one in the house, I can promise you that.
I guarantee it ain't got a B string on it.
No, they're at another place. Yeah, they're somewhere else.
But yeah, that D45 is pretty unique because it's got a
really special
F9 neck. Had these lines coming down by the hexagon inlay, and 38. You know. First year, I think, for the hexagon inlays. And this guitar is unique because it's got a tortoise shell head plate, which is really, really neat.
Had the plus keys on it.
And it's got the only shaded top D45 1938. And that was when I saw that guitar. I came the day after you did, and I saw that guitar, which about every Martin guitar book, you're going to find that picture of that guitar, and it's that rare. They'll have a picture of that shaded top D45 in that book. And I mean, several of my books in my library, it's got collector Martins in it. It's all got that guitar. And then when you see it,
the Don Teeter guitar.
The Don Teeter guitar, and when you see it, like we saw it up Nashville, it's like. It's just, it's like, wow, this is,
When I got to go, after Elmer passed away, this guitar needed fret work and stuff like that, and I thought, I'm going to go see Don Teeter. I'd done fret work and stuff, and I didn't do too good. And I thought, I'm going to go see Don Teeter. It's a long way from here to Oklahoma City. But me and a friend, we drove out there. I've got a video of it. Went in his shop. I took this guitar, and he refretted it. And he was pretty nervous at the time. He about dropped one in the floor. And I was filming him and everything like that. So he goes back in this little room. This is a little one-car type garage, and his workbench is pretty small, like everybody else's is. And he had a table saw that he laid the cases on stuff. But he goes back in this little closet room, and he comes out, and he's got a little rubber band full of braces. And there's about 4 or 5 braces in there. He said, "That's the original braces that come off of that D45. I said, "Really?" Wow. He said, "Yeah." And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool just to see part of it.
Yeah.
He actually went back in there and he said, "You remember the 1944 that Lester Flatt gave Keith Whitley?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "There's the neck for it."
Wow.
So the neck had been broken 2 places. It had the serial number stamped in the end of it. And he said, "Now the neck I put in that guitar, he made a new neck and put in that guitar." He said he got it out of New Mexico, that guitar, and it was in pieces. He put it back together, and I think he said he sold it to Lester for $500.
Wow.
And he said that neck has got an adjustable truss rod in it, and I hid the adjuster. It's in behind the brace. He said, "Now," so Greg Lux, best I know, he has that guitar now.
He has that one, yeah.
So Don was a really a very. His deal, it wasn't to him. It wasn't about keeping them original. It was about making them sound good and hold together good. Yeah. As far as keeping them nowadays, people can the people so good they can put them back just like they were original, and they sound good and everything. So they're. Yeah. But now Don, it didn't matter to him. If he had to take a bridge plate out of one, he didn't care. He'd take it out and he'd put 3 pieces of wood together and put another back in it. Yeah.
Don was pretty cool because he was back when I was learning how to do repair work. He was one of the few guys that actually he wrote 2 books on repair. I've got both of them. Oh yeah. But man, at the time when he wrote those, there wasn't anything out there,
No, and he put it in plain talk. He drew all the tools. He was a tool and die man. So he wrote the book, took the pictures in black and white of all these tools. Probably, I'm going to guess 90% of the tools that he designed is what StewMac is. They're making now. They make the same tools and just different little tricks of the trade.
They were great ideas in that book.
Every repairman does things different, but he was sure an innovator. I think Martin actually used him on some repair jobs that they were puzzled on what to do, and he'd come up with something to do to make it hold together. I've sent a bunch of them to him. I don't know when he passed. He's been dead for quite a few years, but he was a genius when it come down to working on guitars, and it was a pleasure to go to his shop that time and visit with him.
1, 2, 3.
The Guitar Porch, celebrating the soul of vintage guitars.